Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining my speech today. My name is Juan Guevara, and today we'll be speaking about the VW Group and its crisis on the Dieselgate scandal. So, to start off, I believe nobody really likes to be lied to. We've all been lied to before in the past, and although it's become somewhat natural, we've never really expected it, especially from these high volume, high stake manufacturers that we all have grown to love. Now, throughout the last couple years, we have actually transitioned over to that, and since then found out that the VW Group has been lying about all of their emission scandals, or the emissions that have been tested out for the last 10 or so years. Now, what does this mean to us? In 2014, the VW Group was caught and conceded for cheating on more than 13 million vehicles throughout the US and Europe combined throughout the world. Now, 13 million cars throughout the world is a lot of cars, and throughout the US, that's more than 18% of cars throughout the manufacturer dates of 2009 and 2014 have been produced, or diesel cars that have been produced in 2009 and 2014 that have been affected by this scandal. Now, what does this scandal really mean? This means that when these cars were originally produced throughout the years of 2009 and 2014, they were actually tested and cheated upon in order to go ahead and pass these emissions tests. Now, if we've all heard anything about MPG, which is miles per gallon, it's a test that's generally tested by the EPA and the FDA, as well as the European WLPT, in order to go ahead and conclude that the fact that these cars are clean, safe, and good for the environment and good for our use as well throughout the process. Now, where did everything go down in the sense of the scandal? The review of the emissions tests and the reviewers went ahead and tipped off the WLPT and the European and the American EPA in order for them to go ahead and retest these VW vehicles throughout these last couple of years. Now, throughout these last couple of years, they were found out that these tests were being manipulated, and the VW Group were actually either paying off the emissions standards, or going ahead and manipulating the cars in order to be able to pass these tests. Now, as stated previously, that's more than 12 million cars combined in total throughout the last 10 years, producing more than $2.2 billion worth of revenue throughout that time. Now, since then, the VW Group has been caught and fined more than $2.9 billion throughout the case, and now faces major backlash by the European WLPT, the US EPA, as well as their customer base as well. Now, what will VW Group do within the meantime? Well, looking back at their initial reaction, it wasn't too good. Major blanks, as we like to call it, is pretty much no answers to the crisis, and not really sure where to go on from there. Now, since 2016, the VW Group has committed to either refinancing these cars or taking them back completely as a stop sale, and even going ahead in some cars that they can't take back, going and extending the warranties for more than 10 years throughout the time. They've also offered more modifications to their cars so they can become EPA friendly and WLPT friendly, which will make them a little bit more economical and more in line with the figure that they were quoted about 10 years ago. But still, a major question as to what might happen to the VW Group and its standing on diesel cars. Now, since then, the VW Group has stopped producing diesel cars, and I think this is the right move in terms of marketing and PR, as well as getting across the message that we're all done with diesel cars and we'll take our punishment. Now, while that punishment might be fine and dandy to stop producing diesel cars, the VW Group has to go ahead and deal with more than $2.9 billion worth of taxes, as well as punishments and lawsuits for the European WLPT and the US EPA. As far as its customer base, it's forced to go ahead and renew these warranties, as well as take back most of their cars and stop sales for pretty much all of VW Group as a whole for their diesel cars. That includes Audi, Porsche, VW, Skoda, and a couple other European brands that are affected by this. Now, throughout this time, VW Group has went ahead and taken its consequences, although they haven't been too light, with, as mentioned, $2.9 billion worth of losses throughout the years, and countless of vehicles having to be brought back in order to amend the crisis. Now, what will VW Group be doing in the future, as well as paying these major taxes and frauds? They're also looking to become more green and electrified. Now, committed to this is the go green and think green mindset, to where VW Group has promised to produce more than 10 electric cars throughout the next 5 years, as well as committing to more than 100,000 charging stations throughout the U.S. paired with Electrify America. Now, combined with this, the VW Group stands by committing to lowering their overall gas and emission standards by 25% up until 2030, as well as helping out the charging network throughout the U.S. in order to go ahead and compensate for their losses, as well as the scandal to which they've produced so many faulty cars. Along with this, Porsche, Audi, Skoda, as well as other European VW Group based brands are going to go ahead and vouch to make electric cars, as well as more charging stations throughout Europe and the US. Overall, throughout the next 10 years, we'll see the evolving of the VW market and the brand itself as we know it. Although we're not too sure what might happen, the VW Group is definitely taking a stand against what they did, as well as making a stand towards the future and producing more electric cars, going greener, as well as stopping the production of diesel cars in general. Although we're not too sure what might happen yet, looking forward to the next 10 years in terms of electric and green production and the electrified stations. Thank you so much.